Hello and welcome to Whizz Kids Online. My name is Sophie and today we're going to be making a fossil. Now, fossils are the remains or impressions of plants and animals. Some, like dinosaur fossils, are millions of years old. And fossils are really important because they tell us about what life used to be like on Earth all the way up till now. And the type of fossil that we're going to be making today is a cast fossil. If you'd like to learn more about the other types of fossils, there is a link in the caption to an article in Encyclopedia Britannica. Now, the way that cast fossils are formed is that an organism, like a shell, gets trapped between layers of sediment. Now, over time, the shell will disintegrate, it will break down, and it leaves a hole in between the layers. And over time, the hole might fill with minerals, which then harden, and then that gives you a 3D replica of your original shell. Now, someone like a paleontologist, so that's what we call people who study fossils, will come along and dig it up and you'll have that record of that shell that might be thousands of years old. Okay, so to make your fossil, you are going to need something like a shell, anything that you'd like to make a fossil of. Maybe you have a dinosaur figurine at home. You will need some strips of card or paper, a spoon or anything that you can use to excavate your fossil, a paintbrush, something to mix your plaster with, some tape, water, scissors, clay. I've just bought my clay from Officeworks, but you can find it in many craft shops. And I've opted for air dry clay because you don't have to do anything fancy, you can just leave it out and it will dry. Something to mix your plaster in, a measuring cup, some plaster of Paris, again you can find at hobby shops or even places like Bunnings, some detergent, gloves and eye protection. So I've got my glasses, but maybe you want to pop some goggles on. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is create a ring with our strip of paper. So I'm going to grab mine here and I'm going to fold it and I'm going to tape it into place. Okay, the next thing you want to do is grab your clay and you want to make a flat disc. Now you pop your clay inside your ring and you want to press it down so that there are no gaps between the clay and the paper. And you want to make it nice and flat. So it should look something like that. All right, grab your object, so I'm going to get my shell, and you want to coat it in some dishwashing liquid, and that will stop it from sticking to your clay. And you don't need a lot, just a drop. Okay, got that nice and coated. Now you want to pop your detergent side face down and press it firmly into your clay. So when it's pressed in, it will look like that. And then gently pull it out, not too fast. Okay, great. And see, you can see that I've got an impression of my shell there. So we have the mold. Now we need to make the filling, which we're going to use the plaster for. So you grab your mixing bowl and you grab your plaster. I've already measured mine out, but just check the packet. It should tell you what quantities you need of plaster and water. But if you're not sure, a general rule of thumb is 1 part of water to 2 parts plaster. And I've got my measuring cup here, so I'm going to measure out some water. And I'll put my water in the mixing bowl first. Now, important, before you start mixing your plaster, you want to grab your gloves and put your eye protection on. And I would also get a grown-up to help you with this step. So I've got my gloves on. Oh. Okay, I'm just going to pop that to the side. Okay, now we're going to add the plaster to the water. Now when you're adding the plaster in, it can set quite quickly, but you don't want to stir it too fast because that might create some air bubbles, which won't be good for your mold. So getting a nice steady rhythm, but not too fast. So I'm going to add my plaster in here. And you can see that I'm sort of moving it from side to side rather than just dumping it all in one spot. It's just to help get the mixture nice and even. Okay, get my mixer and I'm going to stir. So you can see here I'm stirring and I'm getting a better consistency as I stir. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to quickly pour it in to my mold before it sets. So I'm going to pour it in. It's probably actually a bit runny. You might want it a bit thicker than that when you do it. Okay, now I'm going to leave that to set. So have a look at the packet to see how long you need for your plaster and your clay to dry. With mine, I just left it a day and then that gave me this result. So you've got your little flat pancake. Now you can start to excavate your fossil, and you can do that by using something like a spoon. Either end is okay. And you can break off bigger chunks, but go slow and steady because if you go too fast, you might break your fossil by accident. And as you get closer and closer to your fossil, you might then want to use your paintbrush to dust away some of the finer particles. When you're done, you should have a little replica of your original object. So you can see here I've got my shell. The other way that you can excavate your fossil, but I don't think it's as fun, is if you have your dried clay and plaster, and then you can carefully peel it apart so that your fossil will look like that. Either way, it's up to you. You might want to make a fossil for a friend, so maybe you give them the dried little pancake and they can discover what you've put inside for them. But I hope that you have fun making your fossil. Thank you for joining me and I'll see you next time.